Alrighty, welcome back to the Net to Net podcast. Today we have a special guest, Brett Cingle, one of our dear close friends, is here. Brett, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Great to be here, guys.
Yeah. So this is a kind of a special episode because we finally have our first ever guest on the Net to Net podcast, and today we are going to be talking about the Premier League. The Premier League starts next week. We're all very excited for that to start. It starts Friday. Arsenal takes on the first game. I forget who they play, but it should be
It's
a good
City and
game.
Burnley.
Oh, is it City and Burnley? I thought it was
Yeah.
Arsenal.
Arsenal plays
Yep.
on Saturday at like 7 in the morning here on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yep. So that should be a good game. It'll be Pep versus Company. We've all been anxious to see that.
Yeah, something that'll be interesting.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna dive into the Premier League, everything Premier League today. So we're gonna hand it off to Kirsch to get us started.
Yeah, so instead of going through the standings first, which we will get to very soon, we're going to go through our individual awards, such as, Manager of the Year, Player of the Year, all the way down to who we think is the most improved. You got signings, all that type of stuff. So we'll start out with our guest, Brett. What is your most improved pick? So we're looking at all the Premier League. Who's your most improved player?
Yeah, so I went with a player that is usually amazing and would be shocking to see on a list or on for this award. And it's Tottenham boy Son. He had a bad year last year. I personally think he was dealing with some injury that even when he was back, he just wasn't himself. Also, new manager coming in, I think that's going to help a lot. And I expect him to be back as one of the top players in the Premier League this year. So he will be well deserving of this award by the end of the year, hopefully.
All right. Yeah, I could definitely see Son making a comeback here. Going over to Casey. Who you got?
Yep, I had the same here as our guest Brett. I had Heung-min Son as the most improved player, just because of the quality that we've seen from him in the past. I mean, we've seen him score 23 goals and have 7 assists in a season, joint top goal scorer in the Premier League. And last year he only had 10 goals and 6 assists, which is normally a good season for most players, but for his standards, he's just a lot better than that, and I could see him getting back into the team of the season this next year. I could probably see him getting 15 and 7 maybe at least, and he could get up to 20, but he's going to be playing next to Harry Kane, and they just brought in James Maddison, who's another great playmaker. But Son, he's a great one-on-one player. He could play with anyone and just have a really good season. But yeah, with a new manager and some signings that they brought in, I think he's going to have a much better season.
Echoing that. Sam?
Yeah, for my most improved has to be Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins, if you look at it, he's been getting better every year, and he keeps on growing. Yes, he's coming into his peak at 27 years old. You look at it, he had 14 goals in 2021, and then went to in 2021, 2022, he had 11, and then back to 15 and 6 this year, last season. So I think that he can produce even more to 20 goals per season. So it'd be very interesting to see how he progresses, especially in this Unai Emery system with having Moussa Diaby coming in for about 40, 50 million on the wings, to help with Leon Bailey to balance out that wing play to get in and create that opening space for Watkins. And I think they just didn't have that with Buendia and Coutinho on the wings. So I think having these two providing Watkins helps a lot more.
Kev, you're muted.
Is it working now?
Yep, all good.
Okay. So I went with Yuri Tielemans, another Villa player. I see him making a bounce back year after his season with Leicester last year didn't go so well. So him and Unai System will be pretty good, I think, and working with Watkins and Boubacar Kamara and all those guys at Villa, I think they're going to have a good season. I think he's going to be an integral part of it. I don't know about his numbers, if they'll be that great, but overall play, I think it'll be a lot better in terms of just his ability on the ball, getting the ball out wide. So players like Diaby, and helping out Watkins. So yeah. Next up, we're gonna go with the worst signing of the transfer window. Brett, who do you have?
So I went with somebody who has struggled, from time to time in the Premier League, but has also been really good in other leagues. And this is Kai Havertz. So the reason why I think he's the worst signing is because watching him play at Chelsea, I mean, he's a very frustrating player to watch because he'll be right in front of the goal and he will not score, even if the goal, even if it's an open net. So I'm not really sure why they dropped 65 mil on him. Um, he's definitely not worth that in my opinion. He can be good. He's shown some signs of potential to be really good, but I haven't seen it much in the Premier League, and I don't really know what Arsenal is doing, and I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I think it's just a terrible signing, especially with that price. So.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I also had Havertz for this. 65 million is just way too much for him, and I think that my problem with the signing is that Arsenal just have a lot of on-ball players, the players that need the ball. You look at Declan Rice, who they just brought in for 105 million. You look at Martin Odegaard, who just had a breakout season last year. You look at Martinelli over on the left wing, Saka on the right wing, who are both improving and still young. You look at Gabriel Jesus, who's up top, and Zinchenko out of left back going into the midfield to even help create. So I really just don't see a place for Havertz in this side to be as creative and as free as he should be. And we've seen flashes back when he was at Chelsea, and we've also seen some bad moments from him as well. But I think I would have liked to see him go to a different team where he has more of that playmaking responsibility and creativity. Uh, like freedom. But I don't really think in that Arsenal system that he's going to have that freedom to be able to play his game. Just because there's so much quality around him and players who need the ball. And 65 million is just way too much for a player like that, anyways.
Sam, what do you have?
Yeah, mine came down to two people. I totally agree that Havertz could be one of the worst signings of this transfer window. Yes, the transfer window has not ended yet, but I see two players that I could see having troubles adjusting to the Premier League, and they both play on Man United. I went with Andre Onana for 47.2 million to replace long-term goalkeeper in David De Gea. We've already seen so far through two games of how he hasn't looked sharp, how he doesn't look like the same that he did at Inter. We saw he got chipped almost from the halfway line a few games ago. You saw him; he's not really gelling with those center backs, whoever's playing at center back. Yes, we don't see that Maguire will be playing center back, but we don't know how rusty Lisandro Martinez is coming back from an injury, especially with Achilles. Varane is getting older, so we don't know how he'll gel with Onana, especially with their outside backs. Who's playing outside back? And then the next person is Ramis Holjan. They bought the young striker. I believe he's 19, 20 years old for 72 million. He had a breakout season last year with Atalanta in the Serie A league, and the Serie A league is a good league, but it's not the same as the Premier League. You look at it. Yes, he scored he scored 9 goals and 2 assists in 32 games for Atalanta. So he is starting to come up. He is only 20 years old. Is this the right move for him? Coming in to be the new number 9 that of Ten Hag, leading that front line on a team like Man U. We've seen players come in um, young and not do great at United. The likes of Memphis Depay, Anthony Martial. Those guys had big potential to be a great number 9 for the next number 9 for Man U, and I could see that just turning out poorly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's something that a lot of Man U fans aren't willing to bring up. Possibility of those two not being up to the quality that they wish, and especially the price tag. I also chose a Man U player. I have two down. I put Mount. I don't know how he's going to fit in that system. I'm not sure what's going to be going on with him. He had a rough season last year with Chelsea, and could be a similar thing. I mean, we saw him in the game recently in preseason, missing a wide open goal, no goalkeeper pretty much, just him one-on-one, just completely whiffing. And then I also have Havertz like Brett Casey, because I just don't see where he fits in, first of all, and second of all, I mean, kind of living off that Champions League goal in the final. And as well, I mean, today the Community Shield happened, and he had two chances right in the middle of the box, easy passes right to his foot, and couldn't put it away. And had he put one of those away, Arsenal wouldn't have gone to penalties. So I just don't see how he works out with them. Uh, and he has a lot of letdowns. I mean, he's a good player on the ball, but apart from that, I don't see where he really will be contributing that much. So on from there, we're gonna go with the best signing now. So who will be a standout player? Just got signed in this transfer window. Brett, who do we got?
We have a Chelsea boy, which is shocking because Chelsea always drops a lot of money, and well, you saw how that worked out last year for him. But I went with Nkunku, which I have difficulty saying his name sometimes, just because I really like the way he plays. Obviously, he's coming from a different league, from Bundesliga. So, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment just because the leagues play a lot different. But fantastic stats there. Great playmaker, fun to watch. I think the Chelsea fans are going to love him, and I think he'll have a breakout year in the Prem. And I'm excited to see, what Chelsea does with him.
Brett, do you see him more like how we saw this preseason as kind of like the more number 10 role compared to what we saw at Leipzig, where he did score 18 goals as like that false 9 center forward role? Where do you like him more, as a 9 or as like a makeshift false 9, or in the 10 role?
I think it's going to be based off of who else is available for Chelsea. I personally love him at the 10, but if Chelsea is struggling to have a striker that's up there, you know, performing well, I think he's a fantastic false 9 too. But he definitely needs to be at that attacking center of the field because he needs the ball in the attacking third, and he will create for all of his teammates, no matter who it is. So um, I think he'll do fantastic in either role.
Awesome.
Casey?
Yeah, I had another Tottenham player. I had James Madison coming over from Leicester for about 40 million. Um, I just think James Madison is a really quality player. He was in a really bad Leicester side this past year who got relegated, but he was one of the only constants in that squad. Back in for Leicester, 203 appearances, 55 goals, and 41 assists. Those are some really quality numbers for a midfielder. And you just see it in his play every single game that he's consistent. He can make the players around him better. And he's just a through and through solid box to box player. And now that he's going to be playing it with better talent like Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, who I think is going to be the most improved. Uh, along with the other signings that they just brought in, I just think that midfield is going to be so much better with Madison there. He's going to be a really calming presence for that squad, and they kind of needed that last year, and we didn't really see that as much. But I think for 40 million, it's a steal. You compare it to who I said was the worst signing, Havertz, and it's just a no-brainer. It's just so much better. And I would have liked to see him go to Arsenal as well, but Madison, but they wanted Havertz. But overall, Madison, quality talent, and he's just going to fill in nicely for that role.
Yeah, I think Tottenham lacked that creativity ever since Eriksson left, and I think he's like a perfect fit to just plug and play. We know on Polo's Koski loves to play the 4-2-3-1, so you can get him in that like 10 role and be that creative behind Kane and be able to pick and point to Kulusevski and Son on the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Going off of that, my best sign. I think I can see all these choices of Nkunku and James Madison being a great signing. Mine has to be between two people. I think Sandro Tonali, Newcastle. I think the way they brought him in from AC Milan, and I hate to say it because I'm an AC Milan supporter, but 60 million is a steal for Tonali, and he's young. I think him and Bruno Gomes will have a perfect partnership in CDM. Those two, you are not getting past them. They are both great on the ball, both physically. They can defend well. And then I would also have to go with City's newest signing of Kovacic. You bring in Kovacic for 25 million to replace Captain Gundogan. There wasn't really anyone else that you maybe could have brought in to kind of replace the engine that Gundogan gave you. Kovacic has an engine that never stops running. If you saw for Chelsea, he was probably one of our most not productive, but consistent players other than Enzo Fernandez, who played last year. He's very good in the midfield. He brings that winning mentality that he had at Chelsea and what he had at Madrid, what he's learned from who he's played with, like the likes of Modric and Kroos and Conte, and brings that to City and kind of just reloads City's team. Like, yes, losing Gundogan, losing Mahrez is a big thing. But if you can bring in a talent like Kovacic, I think that their midfield can be even better. Yeah, Gundogan's older, and Gundogan has those injury histories. Kovacic you're bringing in who's 26, 27, doesn't have that injury history, and you slot him right in to play with Bernardo Silva or Kevin De Bruyne or whoever's playing that, because he is coming from a team that played a 3 in the back, and that's what bringing in Kovacic, bringing in Vardiol, they fit a 3-back system, which Kovacic flourishes in. So I think Kovacic and Tonali could be the signings of the season.
Do you think City's going to be better with Kovacic rather than Gundogan? Because Gundogan was a really key piece to that City midfield, and you saw in the finals that they played in, like he was the main goal scorer for them, even though he was playing with the likes of Haaland and others. But do you think that they're going to be better now that they have Kovacic?
No, I don't think. I think Gundogan's better. But with what they had to get, what was out there, I think is a good replacement. It keeps them at that level. Not like it might be a couple steps down, but it's not as a huge drop off of like bringing in like, I don't know, like a Tielemans or a James Madison who might not fit the system. Really? Because I think Kovacic is a perfect mold that fits that system of what Pep likes to play, especially in a 3-back, with how they play with John Stones as a center defensive mid. It's a good replacement, and especially on a cheaper deal. Like you said, Madison for 40 million to Spurs is a good transfer, but if you can get Kovacic on 25 million, that was barely anything. So I just think what they had to work with is what they got, and can replace the work rate of Gundogan. Maybe not the talents and the goals and the assists, but the work rate of.
It's more of a fit. It's a better fit, is what you're saying. Yeah. Mm. For me, I'm taking Madison for 40 million any day, but I see your point. Yes.
Mm. Mm. Kirsch, who'd you have?
So I have an honorable mention and I have a best signing. So my honorable mention is Edson Alvarez if West Ham can get that done. And best signing, obvious, Guardiola. I mean, the dude's 21 and he is already one of the best defenders in the entire world. So him going to City, he's going to probably fill in that left back mold, and just no one's getting past him really. I mean, apart from maybe a couple here and there, I don't see him having a rough season. I think he slots in, and honestly, that is one of the best signings that City could have made. Um, Apart from maybe Mbappe, but other than that, yeah, I would say Guardiola will be the best signing and could be one of the contenders for player of the season coming up too. So, um, moving along past best signing. Brett, who do we have for young player of the year, which should be 23 and under?
Yeah, so I have a little curveball here. I have a Man U boy under the likes of Garnacho. Um, he's shown some signs of some brilliance. He obviously didn't play that much last year, but I expect him to get some more playing time this year. And he's very young. He's only 18, but I think he has very high potential. And I think the more and more years that he's at Man U, he's going to just continue to keep scoring and keep doing incredible things. So I think he's going to have a breakout year. And he's going to win that award.
Do you
Okay.
think, Brett? Do you think he's going to have the game time in order to win that award, though?
I mean, I've seen him not even, get in for like 20 minutes and at the end of the game, and he scores. So I don't think he
Yeah.
needs that much time, to be honest. He's a pretty, I don't know, pretty attacking, just goes right at the goal kind of guy. And when you play like that, I mean, you only need a couple minutes. You just need the ball a couple times, figure out how to beat your guy, and slot it into the side netting. So I know what
Mm,
you're saying, and that more time would definitely help him. His stats would probably be much better, but I don't know. I think he can pull it off even if he's not starting every game.
yeah, and he does have a chip on his shoulder going into next year, I think, because he wanted that number 7 number on the back of his shirt. He's 49, but he wanted that number 7 and he didn't get it. And I heard that him and his family were very, very angry about that. So I think this year he's got a lot to prove. I mean, um, so we'll see. We'll see. That's an interesting pick, Brett. Casey, who you got?
I brought up a player that you already talked about, Caleb, as best signing, Baridal for Manchester City.
Mm-hmm.
He's already one of the best center backs in the world, and he's only 21. He's going to be starting for City probably every game, and he can only get better. Really, he's not going to get any worse. And like you saw him at the World Cup, and even this past year, like he was he was probably top 3 center back at the World Cup, and he was definitely the best young center back at the World Cup. So I really see him as a solid foundational piece who can play on the ball, who can defend, who's a physical player, who's fast, and he can defend anyone except for Messi, of course. But he's going to have a great season for City and that 3-back system, and Pep is really going to rub off on him. And I think he's going to win the award because he's going to play so much.
Sam?
Yeah. So if you look at the recent history and you see that Foden's won it twice, Erling Haaland won it last year, Trent won it in 2019, 2020, you see a lot of those names are big. They've played a lot of games over their years for their team. Haaland played one season and just dominated the Premier League. I think the next person, though, I think could win it. I like Garnacho. I thought he had a shout. It's just my thing was like Casey said, the game time. But I went with Crystal Palace right wing Michael Elise. Michael Elise, very dynamic on the ball. Very dynamic on the ball. I think he's going to take a big step, especially with Wilfred Zaha leaving. yes, Elise doesn't have the goals over 2 seasons of being on Crystal Palace. Yes, he only has 4 goals, but over 2 years he has 16 assists. Last year he had 11 assists. He is a creative player. If that's in playing attacking midfield or if that is playing on the wing. Yes, they have Ezzy, who is very also dynamic and is a good shout for Young Player of the Year. But I think Elise can take that next step in a bigger role with Crystal Palace, especially if they need that production that Zaha gave them. And there's also rumors that Elise could be on his way for 26 million back to Chelsea. If he goes to Chelsea, I think that's even a better place for him to flourish because of the talent around him, and especially with that right wing open with Chelsea. I just think Elise can take that next step. You see him kind of getting involved with the France under 21 teams, and you just see him how his progression and his potential has been growing over the last couple of years. So I think Elise can bring you something that we might not see with Garnacho because he doesn't have the game time. Yes, I think Vardiol could be a Young Player of the Year. But my only thing is you bring in Vardiol into your center backs. Ake has played very well last season. He's been in great form throughout last season and in preseason. Akanji always has been a solid in the back. It's like, do you really? Yes, you spent 90 million on Vardiol, but I've seen that they were going to play him on the right center back because they don't want to take. Yeah, I've read stuff that says Vardiol is going to slot in at right back where Kyle Walker was playing at right center back because they don't want to take out Ake because he just signed that new contract. He's been playing insane for both club and country. It's just like you don't want to change too much up in your system. And I just think since Elise is already a mainstay in Crystal Palace, I just think I think he could have that next big step.
Yeah, I also went with Guardiola as a young player. I think it's probably going to be him, just based on his stature, the influence that he has on the team. We saw with Croatia in the World Cup. I mean, I haven't seen that article that you're talking about, but I feel that Kanji might have had a little bit of a better season than Ake last year, so I see him filling in that left back spot, or that left center back spot, and really flourishing there. And he is under 23, so I mean, it's up to him to really get that because City's going to be probably forced this year, and they're more likely to give it to a team that's been doing really well than a team that may be doing poorly. Like I feel like Crystal Palace might. But at least I could see him making a step up, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong, of course. I could be wrong. But I don't see him doing that. I see Vardy being the mainstay. So now we're going to move on to top assister in the league going into next season. Who do we have for that spot, Brett?
We have the magician himself, De Bruyne. It's tough to compete with his passing and vision. We've seen it year after year. He is just absolutely incredible and such a great playmaker. And I think Haaland will have another big year. And I think De Bruyne is going to be serving the ball right on his forehead. So I really don't see anyone else that can compete, but I really would like to hear your guys' answers too about that.
Mm-hmm. Casey?
Yeah, I mean, you have to go for KDB here, Kevin De Bruyne. I think it's just the obvious answer, and you see him every single season, just so consistent. His playmaking abilities, his assisting, especially, and he's playing next to the likes of Haaland, and it's tough to pick anyone else really. It's just he's on a different level when it comes to playmaking, and he could end up being one of the top assisters of all time next to Suarez and Messi, but we'll see.
Sam?
It's too bad Chelsea let go of him.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was going to come and bite me. I would like to say someone else, but when you have Haaland and De Bruyne on your team, there's nothing else I can say. There's nothing else that these two boys just said that isn't true, and Everything's correct. So De Bruyne.
Yeah, I actually did go with someone else. Obviously De Bruyne. Don't hey whoa. Obviously De Bruyne is one of the best midfielders we've ever seen in the Premier League, but he's going to be coming off a start that is likely on the
Who you
bench
pick?
coming this week, and he does have an injury record that's piling up a little more than I personally. I hope. I love the guy as a player. I think he's a great player. I went with Martin Odegaard. I think he's going to have a season that he goes off. I mean, we'll see in the predictions later where you guys have Arsenal, but I see them competing for the title again. So I think he's going to have a really good year. Madrid should have never gotten rid of him. He's a great player, so I'm going to go with Odegaard. I think he's going to be able to manage that load this year.
Not gonna lie, I did not see that coming. I thought he was going with a Liverpool player. I wasn't gonna lie.
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
I thought he was going with. I thought he was going with Salah, and I was like, oh gosh. But no, I can see Odegaard. Odegaard had 7 assists last season. He was very accurate with his passes. He had an 84% accuracy, so it's a good shout. It's just who's playing up front. If it's Jesus or if it's Havertz or if they keep Balogun, if it's Nketiah, we really don't know who he's providing the goals to. So that's my only thing. I think with De Bruyne, you already know who he's providing the assists to.
Well,
it makes it more obvious.
The other thing I thought of is Arsenal did upgrade their size of their team. They're not as small of a team. So I think, he's the guy who's on the ball. I mean, he takes it over anyone else, corners, free kicks, that type of thing. So I think, you got Rice, you got Gabriel, you got White, and you got Saliba all running in. I mean, and Havertz, that's a lot of size right there. So
yeah, I can see it. My only thing is depending on. I feel like the game time of how much Odegaard's going to play, just because since they're in so many competitions, how much of a break is he going to get? And they're just going to put Havertz in for Odegaard.
Is he not their club captain?
He is their club captain, but you also have to think about
pretty much every
well,
game.
That's not always the case because you have multiple competitions. You have the EFL Cup, you have the FA Cup, you have the Champions League. If they make a deep run in the Champions League, you're not going to play them. You might not play them in certain Prem games, so you might not.
You think Arsenal's making a deep run, Sam?
You never know. You never know. Unless they play Bayern Munich, which is actually isn't possible because it is possible because they're in the Arsenal's in pot 2 and Bayern's in pot 1. So yes, there is a chance.
Possibility.
There is a chance that they don't
in the second round too. It's possible.
But you never know. You see teams like Villarreal just a couple years ago go on a run to the semifinals. You see teams go on big runs like Porto did it when they won the whole thing back in the day. So you never know. I'm just saying hypothetically, if they do make those deep runs into those tournaments, because they love the FA Cup and the Community Shield and whatnot. They like those competitions.
Yeah,
they can beat up on the little teams.
Going to be a good cup manager, but
we'll see.
We'll see. Next up is the Golden Boot Award. This one's always a classic, and I have a feeling we might be saying similar names, but let's start with Brett. See who he has.
I have the very, very obvious, the freak of a player, Haaland, who I have no idea how he gets to some of the passes, but he does. And I think he's going to have another big year. I see Man City dominating, and I see him leading the way with the goals. So,
yeah, Casey.
I actually went for Harry Kane here, and although Haaland was the top goal scorer of all time in a single season for the Prem last season, I don't know if he's going to have that same responsibility that he did this past season. And I know Harry Kane was only a few goals behind. He scored 30 goals just in the Premier League in 38 matches last season. One thing with Harry Kane is he is super, super consistent, and he's scored 17 plus goals every single year since 2014. He's also dropped 30 goals in a season 2 times and over 25 over 5 times. Like he's about to break the all-time scoring record in the Premier League, and he's played over 28 games every single season since 2014. He's just like he will be there. He will have the chances. You bring in James Madison, like I said. You bring in Hyungmin Son as a better playmaker this next season. And I just think he really has a chance to get 30 again or even more, just based on the players they brought in the midfield. So it's all about Kane for me. I don't know what's going to happen with Haaland. I don't know if he'll be asked to do the same things when they have Julian Alvarez, who is also a great player. He might have more play time this next year, and we'll see what happens with that. But for me, Kane is going to bag 30 goals again. So
Yeah, for me, top scorer. Yeah, Haaland had 35 goals. That's insane. But I
yep.
have to side. I have to side with Casey on this one and go Kane. When you have a guy that scores 35 goals and then your next scorer has 30 goals and Kane, like that's just unremarkable. Like honestly, there was a chance where Kane could have passed Haaland a month or
Yep.
two before the season ended, and like Casey mentioned, he's always been the top scorer. He scores. He can score anywhere in the box. He's so close to Alan Shearer's record. I believe he's 40 off. Shearer sits at 260. So, and if he's on track to breaking it, if he can play one or two more seasons, or if he has an unbelievable season like this year. He has a better per game record at 0.66 when Shearer had 0.56 ratio goals per game. And you see that probably by early 2024, I think he can break this record. Not this season, but next season. At the beginning of next season, I think he can break it. Kane has always been consistent, like Casey said, especially bringing Kulusevski on a permanent deal, having Son fully healthy back, having a creator like Madison that gives you 10 plus assists. Madison had 10 assists last year to a lesser side that got relegated. He brings that creativity that I don't think they had since Eriksson and when Bale was there earlier. Kane, and if you look at it, Kane played today, and he scored 4 against Shakhtar Donetsk. I think he's hungry and ready to score goals. I think he's just putting the whole Bayern Munich transfer aside and say, I'm staying. If I want to leave next year for free and have the pick of my teams, I'll do that next year. But I want to try to get as close to Shearer's record as possible. And I think he's hungry. He saw last year Haaland scored 35 goals. I think it's his goal to be the top scorer again.
Yeah, and just one more thing before we go to Caleb here. Just looking at injury history, Haaland really doesn't have the greatest record when it comes to injuries. Whereas Kane, since he's been a regular starter at Tottenham, he's never missed more than 10 games, and most of the time he plays 30 plus matches anyways. So I just think that Kane's going to be playing pretty much every single game. Last year he played 38. The year before he played 37. 35 the year before that. Like, he is really consistent when it comes to matches, and we'll see what happens with Haaland, but he doesn't have the record going back to Dortmund that supports that he'll play as many games.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last time Kane didn't have double digits in goals. Like it's
Yeah.
been almost a decade probably since the last time I've seen it. Maybe when he was still on Leicester before he got to Tottenham, but I haven't seen it in a
Yeah,
while.
even
And
9 years ago, he had his first regular season for Tottenham, 21 goals. Then it was 25, 29, 30, and so on. Like, he's just ridiculous in front of goal. So I think it's a good shout for Kane here. Obviously, Haaland might end up bagging 35 again. We never know, but I don't see the responsibility for him this next season.
Yeah, I see him making that. Maybe not 35 again, but I can see him get 30. In terms of numbers, I think Haaland's going to get it. But in terms of goals and assists, I could definitely see Kane beating him on that. I don't think that Haaland has as much creativity around him now that like Mahrez is gone and Gundogan is not around the box helping him out. But he's still got Julian Alvarez playing a lot of games. He's still got the emergence of Cole Palmer, who we saw had a great strike today. So I'm going to go with Haaland. I think it's just the obvious choice. I see your point on Kane, but I couldn't do it. I don't think that's going to happen. So, player of the year. This could be interesting to hear from all of us. So, Brett, who do we have for player of the year going into next season?
Yeah, I'm going to stay consistent with what I've been saying this whole time. Man U's going to go or not Man U, Man City's going to go crazy again. Haaland is going to be player of the year. It's either going to be him or Kevin De Bruyne. Um, as long as Kevin De Bruyne stays healthy, he will be competing right there next to Haaland. But just from interviews with Haaland, his mindset is literally to score goals. He said his dream is
Mhm.
to touch the ball 10 times, score 10 goals. So all he wants to do is score. I see him probably beating his own record. Um, I think he's
You
gonna
think
make
he'll
it
beat the
very
record again?
yeah. I think he's
Okay.
hungry. He's hungry. He's young. Since he's so young, under such a great manager, Pep, he's got he can only go up from here, in my opinion. So I think he's gonna
Mhm.
go crazy. Um, he'll have a great year, and he'll make it basically impossible for anyone else to win it. So
Easy.
Yeah, I'm sticking to theme too. I picked Harry Kane to win the Player of the Year. I think he's going to be the top goal scorer. He might bag in 10. He might get 7+ assists this year too. We all know he's a great playmaker.
Will he break the
Going
record?
going back, I don't know if he'll break the record, but I don't think Haaland will break his own record either. Um, you look back at 2021, Kane had 14 assists. So we know he's such a great playmaker as well. He could have 30 goals and 10+ assists. And if Tottenham are doing as well as I think they will be when they brought in James Madison, like I said, Youngman's son, most improved. I think Tottenham's going to have a really great season. I think Kane is going to be the big catalyst to that. Assuming he stays, of course, but if he does, Tottenham is going to be top three, and I think that Kane will win Player of the Year, and it's just going to be tough for anyone to top his numbers this upcoming year.
Yeah, in terms of predictions, Casey, you are really hoping that Kane stays and everything has fallen into place good for Tottenham because if we look back at these in a year and
If
see,
he leaves, I mean, a lot of this goes out the
transfer
window,
window is
but
not closed,
yeah.
just so everyone knows. So
Yep.
we are basing it off of today, August 6th. So, Sam, who do you have for your player of the year?
Yeah, I'm staying with the theme as well. Harry Kane. I don't think Kane's leaving. I think Daniel Levy's too stubborn. He's trying to get as much money as possible. I think 110 mil, according to Daniel Levy, is not enough. He wants more, which I don't think is reasonable because he is 31, so he's getting up there in age. But like Casey said, Kane has been consistent ever since he's gotten to Tottenham. He's been consistent every year. If it's 20 plus goals, 18 plus goals, like you said, 14 assists about 2 years ago. So he is creative. My thing is, like, I can see Haaland doing it. It's just, if you look at it like today, when we're watching the Community Shield earlier, Haaland played 62 minutes, zero touches, or it was like 14 touches on 0 shots or something like that. Something weird. Haaland goes through those games where he barely touches the ball and is very involved. And I think this is kind of similar to when Salah came in and broke the record. The next year, teams understood how to play him, how to defend against him, and teams I feel like this year have understood how they can stop Haaland. And you saw in the likes of when they played Madrid in the first leg of the Champions League, Rudiger was on his back constantly, didn't let him turn, didn't let him go for it. He had maybe one or two chances inside the box, and they weren't amount to anything. The same as like the next year with Salah. Yeah, Salah had 20 plus goals, but didn't have the same amount with his record because teams learned how to defend him, how much space to give him, how much time on the ball to give him, where to force him. So I just think that teams are learning how to play against Haaland better, which and Kane has been there for a while, and people still can't figure out how to stop him from scoring that many goals or providing assists. So I just think, and like I said, if Kane gets even close to that record, he would be the Premier League player of the season. And like we said, this is August 6th. The window is still open until the end of the month, so there is a chance he leaves. And then we can talk about that situation. If he does leave, then I think Haaland
Well, then it's going to be
obviously.
Haaland, yeah.
Yeah, then it's obviously Haaland going to win Player of the Year. Or it could be De Bruyne, depending on how many assists De Bruyne gets to Haaland.
Yeah, so before I go into my player of the year, I just want to say, Sam, I'd like to point out something that you said incorrectly. Teams did not figure out Salah. He was Golden Boot 2 times after that, so I just like to point that out real quick.
Yeah, but he wasn't scoring at like 30 plus goals. I didn't
He was
say
still in the 20s. He was still in the 20s.
Yeah, I said that. I said that he was still scoring 20 plus goals, but I think teams figured out how to like play him better to not let him score more than like 20 to the 30 range of breaking the record again. I think Haaland can break that record again. I'm just saying as the seasons have gone on, I think they've learned how to defend him better because the goals are going down a little bit. You can tell.
He had 30 goals last season, but
Wait,
we're talking
Sam,
about
I
just
thought
the Prem.
You
We're
picked,
talking about just
Sam,
the
you
Prem,
picked
not
Kane,
the-
but you're saying Haaland could break the record? That doesn't make sense.
yeah, it's a little inconsistent.
No, like I said, Haaland has a chance to break the record. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Haaland breaks not the all-time scoring list, but his own record. But I think if Kane puts up these numbers like he did last year, or even beats Haaland for the Golden Boot, I think Kane will get Player of the Year.
Just imagine if Kane breaks the record.
If he can somehow break this record this
That
year
would be
and not
insane,
waiting until
dude.
next year, just give him the award now. Like honestly, just give him.
He won't break the record.
He
but
won't,
I
no.
see him bagging 30. Yeah.
I don't see him breaking the record. I did choose Haaland, and I think City will be a little bit more expressive this year, just based on who they have now. I mean, Bernardo, I think, is going to be his usual self. He's going to get more of a chance playing consistently every single game, just because of the likes of Mahrez and others just leaving. Gundogan leaving, he can fill in those spots. But when we talk about breaking the record next year, I don't see Haaland doing it, but I think it'll come close. I think he really could come close to it again. Just there were games where he was scoring like 3 back to back to back. Like it was 2 games where he had 2 hat tricks in a row, or something like that. Like that's honestly ridiculous, and I don't see how teams can really compete with that.
But once again,
with maybe the teams that are with tougher, stronger center backs, but like teams like Luton, Sheffield, Nottingham, Wolves with these defenses, Everton, I don't see them being able to handle them. So,
yeah, when you brought up the hat tricks in the 2 games, I believe those are against like West Brom and like I don't know, maybe Brighton or Burnley. It was like not Burnley, but like teams that aren't
West
like
Brom,
good.
But
It wasn't West Brom. Okay, like teams like those is what I'm saying. Like they're against like the bad teams. Like when we saw against like today against Arsenal, he really didn't do anything. We seen him against Liverpool
and that's
last year.
He
scored a goal against Liverpool, but I believe it was a penalty. It wasn't like an open
that
field
was in
goal.
the FA. It was in the FA Cup, yeah.
And then in the league, they shut him down the first game, but not the second game. So I think it just depends.
The only thing he really did against Liverpool last season in the Community Shield, he missed a couple easy chances, and then there was one moment where he was played in by De Bruyne. Allison comes out, swipes it, and then Foden taps it in. But it ended up being offsides because Haaland was the one who fouled Fabinho, so VAR called it back. Which I don't know if that counts as assist if you get a little touch, and then I don't know.
No, probably not.
But yeah, I think he is pretty consistent next year. So I'm gonna go with him. I think it's a safe choice and the correct choice going into next year. So. Last but not least, on individual awards, unless you guys have any other wild card ones, maybe manager of the year. Brett, who do you have for that?
Sticking with them, Man City. We got Pep. Pep, one of the best managers in the world. Definitely will win it. I think Man City will take the league convincingly this year. Now that they have their Champions League, winning the Champions League pressure off, I think they'll focus a little bit more on the Premier League this year instead of last year, where they didn't focus as much until the end and they pulled it off somehow. So yeah, I think they'll win the league by 10, and I think that will easily give Pep Manager of the Year, even though they're tired of giving it to him. So
Casey?
Yeah, I mean, Brett and I are both being consistent here. I'm picking the new coach of Tottenham, Sakala, to win Coach of the Year, just because of the players that he brought in, the transfers he made, and then obviously I've been picking Kane for almost every award here. So
And
Kane is going to
Son.
have a ridiculous season. James Madison, the best signing of this
James
season.
Madison.
Son, the most improved player of this season.
Is Spurs going to win the league in your predictions? Tell us now.
Spurs are not going to win the league. It doesn't matter.
You have every single thing. Pretty much.
Spurs might win a trophy this season, but they're not going to win the league. It's going to be City. But Kane is going to have a crazy season. Like I said, all the things I've said previous. Spurs are going to have a really good season. I don't think people are picking them to even be in the Champions League next season. Champions League top 4 spot. I've seen a lot of predictions so far, and people are picking them to go like 7 or 8. And I think they'll be a top 3 team this next season. So, yeah, it's all going to fall upon Kane and Son. And when they produce like I think they will, Sakailu's going to get the credit, and he's going to win Coach of the Year because no one's expecting them to do what I think they will.
Interesting. Sam, who do you got?
Yeah, mine was a tough one. Obviously, Guardiola is the favorite again. That would be his 5th if he does end up winning it. But I kind of was in between a couple managers, which I think could win it. I went with Eddie Howe of Newcastle. I think the signings he's brought in with Tonali. Yes, you lost St. Maximin. You lost just like you didn't. They just lost St. Maximin. Really, if you want to say Chris Woods was any difference, I don't think he was.
He was
but
on loan last year.
Yeah, but they got 15 million for him. But I just think they brought in Tonali to play with Bruno. They brought, I think, a good steal was bringing in Harvey Barnes from Leicester for 38 million
that was
to replace St. Maximin on the left-hand side. You already have Miguel Almiron, who broke out last season, who honestly could have won Most Improved last year. I thought he should have. I the way he. Yeah, I think it was just because of the games played because he has that injury history of being hurt, but he looked like a really good winger. I had doubts of him playing on the right side just because we watched him play as an attacking cam at Atlanta United for so many years. He came into his own. I think Isak finally kind of got into his own as a striker. I think he had that kind of rust and kind of adapting to the Premier League. Callum Wilson's a great off the bench scorer. Their midfield with Joelinton was they converted Joelinton from a striker to a center mid, who I think was great. They have a good back line. Nick Pope is a very good keeper. I just think Eddie Howe, what he's doing with that team, transforming that team into a good team. We saw him transform Bournemouth into a top 10 finish before. So I just think Eddie Howe, especially playing in Champions League for the first time in a while, since the Alan Shearer days. And we haven't seen a fun team like this since, honestly, the last time I saw a fun team like Newcastle was probably when Newcastle had like Gini Wijnaldum, Musa Sissoko, and Papa Cisse and Demba. Like, I haven't seen that. Like, I think they're rejuvenized, and especially playing in Champions League can be something good.
Yeah, I don't see Newcastle as a fun team. A team that profits off of some egregious acts. But my manager of the year is going to be Arteta. As much as I want to say Pep, I think it's going to be Arteta. I think that he's due for his time to be in that. And I think he probably will get the votes. Arsenal's been on the up and up for the past 2 years now, so I see him getting it.
What happens when they play Bayern Munich and lose 10-0?
Is Bayern Munich in the Premier League or the Champions League, dude? I think we're doing if we want to do a separate episode on the Champions League, we could totally do that. But Bayern, I think, plays in Germany, so.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, but do you think they do
Arteta?
better than last season though? And do you think they're going to win the league? Because
No, I don't have them
I
winning.
think we all agree that City's going to win the league by a good bit. But you
Well,
think that are they going to be as close as they were this past year?
yeah, I think they'll be around there. Maybe chasing more than leading, but uh, just because someone doesn't win the league doesn't mean that their manager doesn't get the award. So I'm gonna say Arteta. I'm gonna stick with it. I think he maybe his tactics will lead him forward. At the end of the season, it was due to injuries, them falling off. So I feel like they'll be more of a chasing position this year rather than the top of the table where we saw Arsenal fans printing out T-shirts of them first place and then they managed to get second. So yeah, I'm gonna go
Merry
with Arteta
Christmas.
this year. Merry Christmas, Arsenal fans, and it's just the guy with the T-shirt. Oh man, that was gold. So now that we all have our individual awards, let's start with the bottom three teams. Highlight one of them on what we think about them, and we can go. How about bottom three? Then we'll go from 17 to 10, and then we'll go from 9 to 1. How about that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, we can. I mean, when we have those bigger chunks, let's highlight. We can highlight more than one, but in the relegation zone, let's highlight some of the important aspects of each team. So let's start out with 20th through 18. Um, Brett, who did you have for these bottom three teams?
I put last place Luton because it's just an amazing thing that they even made the Prem, but I don't think they will be able to handle it. 19 Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth is kind of on a downslide right now, so I see them struggling this year. And then I have 18 Nottingham Forest. I think I think they're lucky that they made it to the Prem again this year, and um, I'll just highlight this team. Um, they had a keeper that they loaned in, and Keylor Navas, and he saved them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I I I think they're linked with Matt Turner right now, I believe.
Yes,
So
which would be a good replacement.
great replacement, not Keylor Navas.
Yeah.
We've seen him do well with the U.S. national team. He's he's not going to be able to save them though.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be close, but I'm having them go down as well.
And
Yeah,
that's one thing with Nottingham. I don't know why they didn't just try and make that deal permanent with Navas. Apart from his injury record, that's the only thing that I would say holds him back at all. In my opinion, one of the most underrated players in the entire world. So that would have been a class signing from them. Nottingham could be a team to look out for if they do end up getting dropped down to the championship again. Sam, do you want to say something on Brett's relegation prediction?
yeah. So Nottingham Forest is on the verge of signing Matt Turner for $7 million. So that would be a good signing. I think with the Keylor Navas thing is PSG wanted too much money for him. I think they wanted like 15 to 20 million, and I just think, like you said, his injury history just didn't fit their timeline of because they have been signing kind of young players and a lot of loan players, and I think they just wanted to bring in a bunch of loan players just so they could stay up in the Prem and then see where they need to reassess. Like they brought in Ren Lodi last year, who is not with the team anymore. So I think that was their thing. But yeah, I can see all those teams going down.
Casey, who you have for your relegation spots?
So in 20th, I have Sheffield United. In 19th, I have Luton Town. And in 18, who I'm sad to see go down, is a team that Caleb loves very much, Everton. So, yeah, I wanted to highlight Everton here. They had a good run in the Premier League, and it's sad to see them go down, but the Real Blues, they're going down this season. They had some bad transfer business here this summer. They lost Moise Keane to Juventus. They lost Yuri Mina on a free, Tom Davis on a free, Begovic on a free, but they only brought in Ashley Young, who's what 38
8.
now or something,
Yeah.
something crazy like that. Um, they really didn't do much, and they needed to make some big changes because they were horrible last year. I was surprised they even stayed up.
Mhm.
But even with, they still have some quality, but it's not looking good for them this next season. So I have them going down the Blues.
Yeah, they finally got their signing in Danjamin from Villarreal, who they wanted last year on loan, but he went to Tottenham.
Yep.
So that should be interesting. No,
And
I
who do
can
we
see
have?
yeah, I can see all those teams going down. Like both you and Brett picked some great people to go down. I picked 20th. I picked Sheffield United. Um, they haven't made any good signings. The only signing that are major noticeable is Austin Trusty from Arsenal, and he played there last year on loan. So they really haven't brought in any other quality players. At 18th place, I went Luton Town. I think they barely get relegated. It's a great story, starting from all the way from non English football all the way to the Premier League. They have a great story. I just think the run ends here. And the team I highlighted at 19th, I wanted to do them last because I think it's a big thing. I went with Wolverhampton Wanderers. Big
Wow.
thing. I went with Wolves. I went with a big thing. And hear me out. Wolves, you lost your heart and soul, your club captain, Ruben Neves, at 26 years old to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia for that big move. You lose who was arguably your best forward in Raul Jimenez. Yes, he has that injury history of the last few years, but when he's on his game, he's good. You lost him to Fulham for 5.5 million. You brought in Matthias Acuna for 43 million on a permanent deal. He showed inconsistencies last year in the Premier League. Your other big signing is Matt Doherty from Atletico Madrid on a free, who you brought back. You lose two good center backs, and Connor Cody, who's been with your team for a while. Yes, he was on loan last year to Everton. You lost him to Leicester, who went down to the championship. And you lose arguably your most potential center back in Nate Collins for 22 million at Brentford. You lost Adama Traore, who hasn't re-signed. You lost João Moutinho, who you let go. You let Diego Costa go. You haven't brought in the signings to help balance out those losses. And I just think that Lopetegui, who honestly I've never seen as a good manager, when we saw him at Madrid, where we saw him at Sevilla, he wasn't good. And I just don't think they brought in the quality of players. And there could be more on the way out. I know Jose Sa has been linked to a move to Italy and to other Premier League teams at goalie. If you lose Jose Sa, you pretty much lose. I don't know if they can compete. And honestly, I don't even know if they compete right now because I don't. Is Fabio Silva, who's 19, 20 years old, the answer, who went on loan last year to Belgium side? You just didn't bring in the correct players to help balance out the losses, and I see Wolves going down.
Interesting. Not a team that I had in the relegation spot, but teetering around that area. So for me, I had Sheffield 20th. I think they didn't really haven't done enough, and in the past they have spent pretty poorly. So we'll see how that ends up for them. 19th. Luton. I hate to do it to him. Because it's such a great story, and I mean it's gonna be. I can't wait to watch them play against some top six side, and they have to come into their stadium, and their fans are going crazy, and you got people out their windows looking into the game, and people on roofs watching the game, and all this stuff. It's gonna be great to watch. I just don't know if they have the quality to do it. I would love to see them stay in, but I think that's too much for them. And then the team I'm going to be highlighting, like Sam, he had a team that's been a consistent team in the Prem, but I'm gonna go with Crystal Palace. I think they did not do enough so far. Losing their best player in the past almost 10 years. I mean, Vol
Yeah.
Zaha's been there for almost 10 years, probably. He makes his move to Turkey, so I just see Palace a bit youthful, not enough quality, maybe up front, and a bit of a shaky goalkeeper and outside backs. So I just don't see them really competing. I like Crystal Palace as a club. I think their fans are incredible. You can hear them more than most teams on when you watch them on TV. I don't know how the fan experience is at the match because I don't know, I'm American, never been to London, so uh, um, I see them going down sadly. So yeah, uh, anyone have anything to add on their relegation?
I would just say for you, Crystal Palace going down. Like, yes, losing Zaha is a mainstay, but I just think they still have the fire. I think they still have the players around. Like they have Eduardo, Usmano Eduardo, who they got from Celtic last year, who can score goals. They have the likes of Michael Elise, Irchebe Eze. They have a young defense in Mark Gouye. They have Joachim Henderson. They have Tyreek Mitchell. They have a solid team. I think maybe get a new coach. I don't think Roy Hodgson's the answer.
Yeah, I did not bring that up even. I completely forgot.
Hey,
Yeah.
he keeps teams up,
Relegation
so.
Roy over here. Come on.
But I think they have the talent around. They have Meti, who's young, and Eduardo's young. They have a young team. I think they're borderlining relegation, but I don't see them going down. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but that's just my 2 cents on Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I don't see them having enough. Edward is a decent player, but I don't see him and Mateta making Zaha's impact on their own. Eze and Elise are great players, but I don't know. I don't see them having as strong of a year as in the past. And Crystal Palace definitely has had worse teams in the league, and they managed to not get relegated. So maybe I'm a little bit wrong about this, but it's got to be someone. And another team that Casey brought up, Everton. I've been picking them in the relegation for my predictions for the past 2 years. So hoping some voodoo magic happens to put them in the relegation zone by not picking them in relegation. So
Oh, so you think they will go down because you're not picking them
no,
this year?
I'm hoping that they go down, but based on that, I could. So
Knowing Everton and Sean Dice, they're gonna find a way to stay up just above the relegation zone. They're gonna
Yeah.
find another way. It's Everton. They always do.
They don't Frank Lampard, so they might stay up, but
all right. So moving on now, we're gonna go for Brett's 17 through 10, and then you can highlight more than one if you'd like, but the main requirement's just one if you want.
Am I saying 10 as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. At 17, I have Sheffield. I think they're just going to squeeze by.
All right.
Just because, like you guys have kind of mentioned, they haven't done much. But, I mean, if you look at last year, if they have, a similar squad, who's to say that they get relegated with that squad? They,
And if I could chime in with Sheffield real quick, they do have a young Bosnian center back. Don't even ask me to say his name because it is very tough. A long name, starts with an A. He's a quality guy too. He's young. So him and Trusty could be interesting to see together.
Yeah, I'd like to see Trusty. I'm interested to see how he does. 16, I have Burnley. I don't have much confidence in them to do well in the league, but I also don't think I think they have enough quality to at least stay in the league. 15, I have Wolves. I was shocked to see that they are getting relegated on a prediction, but I think they will struggle to score goals, but I don't see them getting knocked down. 14, I have Everton. They're grinders, so I have them still in the not doing great, but not doing very poor. 13, I have Brentford. I think Brentford won't have that firepower that they had last year. I think, what is it, Ivan Toney? I think he might be a one season kind of guy. So, but we'll
He
see.
actually is suspended. He actually is suspended for
Suspended for six
the first.
months.
So
Then
that adds
that
another
hurts them
element to
even
it.
worse. So I'm glad I put them at 13 because I didn't know that. I don't follow as much as these fellas. 12, I have Crystal Palace. I think it's a big hit that Zaha is gone, but I think they have a lot of young talent that people sleep on. I think Chris Richards is an absolute baller in the back as well, as long as he can stay
Yep.
healthy. 11, I have Fulham. My U.S. boys, Tim Ream and Jedi. I love them back there. I think they're great, and I think Fulham will be actually pretty fun to watch this year. So I'm gonna try to watch a lot of their games. 10, which might be a little shock to you guys. I have Brighton being at 10.
Wow.
They played really well last year, but they lose McAllister. Did they lose Matoma, or is he still there?
No, he's still
He's
there.
still there.
He's still there. Okay, so he will help them a lot. He's a baller. But I don't know. I see them not having as great of a year. I think they were just they were just loving life last year, and that type of team they just can't consistently do that in my opinion. So I think they won't do as well. But yeah, that's my 17 to 10.
Yeah. Very good. Case?
Yeah, so I have a lot of the same. I have Burnley at 17. I have Bournemouth at 16. I have Wolves at 15. I have Crystal Palace. What did I say? 14. I have Fulham at 13. Nottingham Forest at 12. West Ham at 11. And Brentford at 10. And I don't have or I have West Ham down here just because they haven't done much in this window as well. They lost one of the best players in the Prem and Declan Rice for 105 million, which you'd think they would buy some players with that money, but they have refused to do so, even though they charged the one of the highest season ticket prices as well, raking in that money. But yeah, they haven't made any signings, and they lost Lanzini on a free. Although he was getting older, he's still a quality player as well. West Ham was the team I wanted to highlight because they haven't done anything, and they lost the heart of their team captain, Declan Rice. So I could see them even slipping farther down than I put them.
Sam? Who do you have
Yeah.
from post relegation
Yeah.
to mid table?
Yeah, so at 17, I have Everton. Like Brett said, they're grinders. They're always there. Everton's going to find a way to win on the last day if that comes down to it. That's okay. 16, I went with Brentford just because I think the 6 months that they don't have Ivan Toney, they're going to struggle. But I think Ivan Toney, when he comes back, he's going to save them from relegation, and he's going to be their savior. 15th, I have Bournemouth. I just don't think Bournemouth has done a ton to stay up. I think they will stay up, but just barely. I think some of their signings, yes, bringing in Justin Kluivert for 11 mil and bringing in Hadim Traore from Sassuolo. They brought in some good signings, which I think helps them overall. But losing someone in the heart of their midfield in Jefferson Lerma to Crystal Palace, I think will hurt them in the long run in their center mids. And then losing Ben Pearson to Stoke for undisclosed fee. But I feel like bringing in Kluivert kind of helps Bournemouth. The same with Roman Ferry from Lyon on cheap contracts, so I think they will help. 14th, I have Crystal Palace. Like Brett mentioned and like Casey mentioned, Crystal Palace losing Zaha But I think gaining Jefferson Lerma, the next steps of Elise, like we've already talked about. I love that Brett brought up Chris Richards because he's a young American. He looked very well last year. Yes, he has that injury history, but I think him and Mark Guye together for another year completes that center back pairing that could be a good center back pairing in the future. At 13, I went with Brighton. I think they've just lost too many people with McAllister. Potentially be losing Matoma to City, who is interested. Caicedo could be on his way out. They lost Robert Sanchez, their goalie. Yes, they brought in Flick from the German side. I believe it was Freiburg, maybe, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. They just lost a lot of people, and I feel like yes, they brought in João Pedro for 30 mil from Watford and Igor from Fiorentina. Yes, Dahout and Milner kind of help balance out that center mids. But if you lose a Caicedo or a Matomo, I feel like they're in a world of hurt. João Pedro is young, so we don't know how he's going to do in the Premier League. At 12, I had Nottingham Forest. I think they just needed time to gel. Their signings, yes, I believe they spent 30. They bought in 30 new players last year, and had to just figure out who was going to stay this coming year and who had to leave. Like I mentioned, Lodi left on loan. They didn't option to buy him. Keylor Navas, Dean Henderson, all those guys, they didn't come back. Yes, they brought in Alanga, who I think helps them. They brought in Ole and Nia on a free from Torino, so that helps them out in their back line with Serge Aurier back there to replace Lodi. Yes, they shedded like Lingard and Ayew, who really didn't do much for them last season. At 11th, I have Burnley. I think Company is a great manager. You saw all of his players were bought in last year. When they won the championship, they brought in the likes of James Trafford from Man City, who's a great young up and coming goalie who played very well in the I believe 21s for England. They have Jordan Beyer, who they brought in from Gladbach. They brought in these good signings. Nathan Redmond for that leadership role. So I think Burnley will stay up. And then the team I highlighted, number 10, West Ham. I think West Ham has enough to stay up within that middle table. Yes, they haven't brought anyone, but they could be bringing Edson Alvarez. I would like to see what they do at striker if they do sell Sakamaka to Atalanta and they use that money to bring in a striker, or use the money that they got for Rice to bring in a striker, because I think they do need to bring in a striker, maybe another one or two center mids, and maybe bring in a left wing, because yes, they brought in Max Cornet last year to play left mid / left back. I don't know where they're going to play him next year, so that will be interesting. So I could see them floating in the top 10.
Okay. For me, I go Bournemouth at 17. That's gonna be a close one, in my opinion. The Palace, Everton, Nottingham, 15, 14 Wolves, Fulham at 13, which I feel like they might have a bit of a down year compared to last year. Last year they were kind of fine at some points of the season, so that's a team to look out for. Burnley at 12. I feel like they might be cooking up something pretty decent this year. I don't know how a lot of their new signings are going to go. I mean, a lot of them are young, except for Redmond, like you were pointing out. So we'll see about that. Brentford, I think, won't do that much worse than before, even though Tony will be out. Brentford's one of those Moneyball type teams where they can find someone and that fits that mold and just stick them in and it'll work out. I mean, that's how they got into the Premier League, through the Moneyball strategy. And then West Ham at 10. I'd like to highlight Bournemouth, though. They picked up a manager last year who he's never been a first team manager. He managed to keep them up, even though at the beginning of last season, everyone was saying, Bournemouth's going to be last. I feel like I did it too as well. So I see them really struggling, maybe not even making making it or staying up. I mean, but I'm going to keep them there just based on some of the signings like Traore and Cliver. I think they're going to be crucial for them going forward. And then yeah, so hopefully, like I said earlier, my anti prediction of Everton not being relegation could make them relegated. So yeah. Let's go to ninth through first.
Premier League last season. But yeah, I don't think that they can go any higher than 9. I think 9 will be their best, but I think that's where they'll finish at the end of the day. For 8, Aston Villa. They obviously have a great squad. They brought in a few players as well. Tillemans on a free is a steal from Leicester, and I think they're going to have a great season as well. But I just think there's so much talent now at the top of the Premier League that it's tough to get up there, even into the European spots. But I think Aston Villa 8 at number 7. I have Newcastle, and this one threw me off a little bit. And Tonali is going to be a great signing for him and everything, but I don't see them finishing top 6. And as crazy as that might sound, it's just I don't know how well it's all going to work out for them. For number 6, I have Chelsea. Yeah, this is another one that hurt me in putting this far back, but this race is going to be tough. It's going to be a really good season for the Premier League, and we're just kind of yet to see how this Chelsea team is going to gel together. They brought in a lot of signings. They sent out a lot of their 2020 Champions League teams. They don't really have the experience anymore. A lot of young players and unproven players. Now, I think Enzo Fernandez is going to be brilliant for them, along with Nkunku, but it's going to be tough to see what happens, but I'm picking Chelsea at 6 here. For number 5, I'm picking Liverpool. And another one that I think is tough, but they brought in a few midfielders, which they needed to. McAllister specifically is going to be really good for them on the creation side, but we still don't know who's going to be starting up top in that number 9 spot, and we still don't know how their defense is going to do next season, because when they were at their peak, their defense was where they excelled at, right? They had Matip, they had Van Dijk, they had Alexander-Arnold, and they had Robbo. You could consider them probably the best defense of the world, and when they won that Champions League. But now you see a lot of regression from pretty much everyone except for Alexander-Arnold, and that's just because he was never a good defender to begin with, and he was more of a playmaker. But I think he'll continue to play make. I don't think Van Dijk's going to have as good of a season as he's accustomed to. Same with Matip. He's really inconsistent. You can't play Gomez. He's super inconsistent. And then Robertson is also not as good as he was in their Champions League winning season. Ever since they lost that game to Real Madrid in the Champions League final, he's kind of just not been the same player. They lose Fabinho, who was kind of a rock in that midfield, along with Henderson. They were regressing, yeah, but they had the experience. So I'm putting Liverpool at 5. You don't know what's going to happen.
What about Konate?
Huh?
Konate.
Konate's good, yeah, but they still need another center back for me to be happy with their defense, especially in the center backs. They don't have the great outside back replacements that I think they need. And with Arnold maybe pushing in the midfield, does their defense get even worse this next year? That's yet to be seen. But I have them in 5th. In 4th, I have Manchester United. Not City, but Man U. They're gonna have another pretty good season. We don't know if Rashford's gonna bag in the same amount of goals as he did this past season. He had that little few-week run where he was just unstoppable, but like a lot of other players in that squad, he's been pretty inconsistent. Yeah, they're splashing the cash now, but they should have done it for Harry Kane when they had the chance to. Antony, we'll see what happens with him. I think he could have a better season, but he hasn't proven himself at all in the Premier League. So and obviously Sancho as well. But their defense, that it could get worse as well with Martinez coming off his Achilles tear and Varane getting older, Luke Shaw getting older, and Wan-Bissaka. Some weeks, Man U fans are like, "Oh, he's one of the greatest right backs in the world," and the other times he's like, "Get him out, sell him for 15 million," and it's just like, all right. But yeah, I think Ten Hag is going to have a good season. Not a great season, but a good season, finishing fourth behind Tottenham, getting in the third spot here. Like I brought up many times, I think they're going to have a brilliant season. Just bring in a lot of the reinforcements, not losing too much. Madison and Pedro Porro, bring in Kulusevski and Vaccaro from Empoli as well. They brought in a lot of a good squad depth, and Kane having another great season. Son having a good bounce back season, and just bringing a new manager, a new system. I think they'll be in a really good spot to finish in Champions League spot, regardless. So I'm putting them at third here. They could finish as high as second, in my opinion, but I think Arsenal will finish second, just because their squad is young. They're still getting older. They have the experience of being top of the Premier League for uh, what was it, 90% of the last season, or something like that. They had, I know they had the most leading time in the Premier League with losing the Premier League in the same season. So that's tough to see. Arsenal, they bring in Havertz, who I picked as the worst signing, but he has squad depth regardless. So if someone gets injured, they have that depth. They bring in Timbers, who they really needed, especially when their center backs got injured last year, and that's kind of when they started falling off, and City caught up to them. Saka's going to improve. I could see him getting Young Player of the Year as well. I know I picked Varidol, but he's incredible as well. So Arsenal is my second spot, and then obviously number one, City is just untouchable here in this number one spot. They just have quality all around the field, and Pep is just the best manager in the world. That it's just tough to go against his City team, especially because they have so much quality. They didn't lose that much. They lost Gundogan, sure, but like Sam brought up many times before, Kovacic is still a good player. He's not as good of a player, but they still have quality all around the field, including the best CDM in the world right now, and Rodri, the best Cam in the world, and Kevin De Bruyne, and probably the best striker in the world right now, and Haaland, until this next season, of course. But yeah, City's going to finish first. They might finish
Casey, you
ahead
don't
by
think
5-10
that
points,
Pep will
but
win?
they're going to win it regardless.
Sam, who do you have going from 9 to 1?
Yeah. Going from 9, I have Fulham. I think Fulham has brought in the right people to help with what they're trying to do with Marco Silva's philosophy. I would like to see what happens with William, because William was a vital piece last year. I don't know what
Didn't
he's
he go
going
to
to do
Saudi
there.
Arabia?
He's on the verge. He could be going. I'm not 100%
Okay.
sure yet. He's linked, but it just depends on what happens over the next month to see if he does leave. I know he's interested in it. He did recently just resign with Fulham for another year, so it could be interesting to see. Then at number 8, we I had Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa has the potential to be in the top 10. They have a really good team in Musa Diaby, and the likes of Ollie Watkins, like I mentioned, and Pau Torres, who they just brought in to play center back with, if it's Mings or Konza. So it'll be interesting to see. At 7, I had Spurs. My thing is with Spurs
Sam,
is what
didn't you pick Spurs to Kane to win all these awards and everything, and then you picked Son to come back, and now you're picking them at 7?
I didn't pick Son. Brett picked Son. Didn't
Oh,
you, Brett?
that's right.
Yeah, Brett.
I picked Son.
Brett picked Son. I picked Kane to win Player of the Year and top scorer. But you can win those awards without winning the league.
Do you think he has 30 goals again? They're going to finish 7th with the reinforcements that they brought in.
I just think, yeah, they brought. Well, when we're talking about reinforcements, we're talking about bringing in Madison. What have they?
Pedro Porro.
Okay, Pedro Porro was there last year.
He was there last year, yeah.
But they made
now
it
he's
permanent.
He's full. Yeah,
They made it permanent. But my thing is, they're center backs. Yes, Romero is good. Who's playing with Romero? Is it Long? Are they trying to get Longley back? Davidson Sanchez is probably on the way out. He's been linked to multiple clubs. They're trying to get rid of him. Or are you playing Eric Dyer in the back? You have Pedro Porro playing right back. Who's playing left back? Are you going to give Reguilon the start? Are you going to play Emerson there? Their back line is so confusing because they don't know who they're going to play, who's going to be there. You have the likes of Lloris, who's getting older, who is not in Enga's plans. They brought in Vicarlo from, I believe it was Atalanta or Empoli, one of the Serie A teams. Yeah, to play. So he's probably going to start. I think Lloris is done as their starting number one. They're just all over the place. It's like, yes, you have those individually. They have players that can win these awards, but as collective, as a team, they just don't have I don't think they have the players in the back. I think they're defensively. What formation are they going to play? They have a lot of players that play in a 3 or a 5 back. Anga likes to play a 4 back, and even if it's a 4-4-2 or not 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, it's just, do you have the right personnel to play this? And that's my only concern with Spurs finishing at 7th. 6th place. This could change. I think we all could agree that 2 through 7 can change at any point. I have Liverpool at 6. Hear me out, because I see all your faces. Because it's like the same.
I have them at 5. I'm not mad.
It's like the same faces, and then we'll hear what Brett has to say about his predictions. I know we had some technical difficulties, so we get to hear his, or save the guess for last. But I have Liverpool at 6. And here's the fact. If we're talking about the Premier League starting next week, yes, we still have the rest of the window to go, but the personnel with Liverpool, do they have enough to compete? And we've already talked about this on multiple podcasts. I'm not going to get into it when we mentioned about how much midfield depth and stuff they have. And who is their actual starting front 3? Because you have the likes of Gakpo and Jota and Nunez and Salah. Who is going to be your main front 3 to play? I do think that playing in Europa League might help them because they can take that tournament as a cakewalk for them because they play in Champions League every year. I just don't think they have the personnel to compete for this long of a season in so many different competitions right now. But that could change if they end up getting Lavia or Anderson or Andrea from Brazil. If they can, like I mentioned, Lavia, if they can get another center back that we've mentioned throughout the summer, if it's a left-sided center back. But we just don't know where Liverpool's state are. We don't know if they're going to spend, if Klopp, because there was a recent article that Klopp came out and said it comes down to him and who he wants in his squad, and he makes those decisions. And if he's made the decision that he doesn't want to bring anyone else in, and he's happy with this squad, then it's his choice. But that's who I have at 6. At 5, I have Man United. Man United at 5. I just don't think. Yes, bringing Onana in is a good signing. De Gea was a great servant to the club for so many years. I just think it was time to leave. But bringing in a 20-year-old striker for $72 million is a lot of pressure for a young guy. And we've seen young players struggle in the Prem being young. So that is my only thing with that. And I could see them struggling in multiple competitions. Like they did in the past. At 4, I went with Chelsea. Chelsea, I think, has done better this transfer window. We've gotten a lot of people out of the likes of Koulibaly, Mendy, Pulisic, and all of them. We got rid of them. We are starting fresh with Pochettino. I like the signings of Nkunu. I like the signings of Nico Jackson. If we can pull off Vlahovic, I think bringing Vlahovic in as a striker for 40 mil plus Lukaku is a great steal. I think Mudrik's ready to take the next step without having such a bloated roster.
You mean getting one goal?
Yeah. He didn't have a goal. He had an assist. But I think he can take
the next step.
Yeah, he had one.
Getting one goal.
And I think he has that next step. I think Sterling can take that, can fit in with the team. I think he'll take that next step. Well, I think we'll see the old Sterling that we saw at City. I also like us bringing in Robert Sanchez. I hope Leslie Uganucha stays with us. I think he can provide us help with our depth of our center mids. We are linked to Tyler Adams. I think he's a good signing for $20 million with that release clause. Hopefully, we can get the Caicedo deal over the line. But if we can't, I think bringing in Adams can help solidify our midfield. I think he'd come right in and start right next to Enzo. And then, like I said, Robert Sanchez is very good. We bought in Dise from Monaco, good deal. So he can help us with our injury back line with Fofana tearing his ACL and Levi Colwell being kind of young, still maybe not playing every game. Same with Body Shield and Chalaba. I like Gusto as our reinforcement with our right back when James goes down. I wish we could get a better left backup. I think Cucurella is not the answer. I don't really prefer him in our system. I didn't really like him when he was at Brighton either. I just don't think he's quality enough for us. He makes tons of mistakes in the back. So we'll just see how that goes. At 3, Newcastle. I just think Newcastle is ready to take that next step, like I mentioned earlier with Almiron and Tonali's, the emergence of Almiron and the signing of Tonali. Playing with Bruno, playing with Joeington, I just think they're phenomenal. At 2, Arsenal. Arsenal has the talent to could have the chance to be the best in the Prem, but I just think they're not there yet. They're missing 1 or 2 key signings. I think that's getting a right back, an actual right back, not playing Ben White out there as a makeshift right back. And maybe getting in a pure number 9. I love Gabriel Jesus. I'm very high on him. I liked him when he signed for City, but I just don't think he's a true number 9 like they need. I wish they gave Balogun a run. I wish they can develop Nketiah more. But that's just how I think Arteta is in that position. He wants to win now. And I think Jesus brings that win now. And then number 1 is obviously City. City gets Vardiol, brings in, keeps Haaland, doesn't let him leave, has De Bruyne still. Yes, they lost Gundogan, but they brought in Kovacic. And they're linked to Matoma. And if they can pull off a Matoma and keep Bernardo Silva, I think City's ready to run it back for another. Honestly, I can see them winning the treble again. It wouldn't shock me if they did that. But that's kind of where I'm at. My highlight of it would have been probably Liverpool at 6, just because I don't know what state they're at right now.
Well, and you highlighted Chelsea. You went through a lot of their positions.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. It's your team, you know.
Yeah, and those are the 2 teams that I wanted to probably talk about the most, just because they're at the most in the top 10 of like the most limbo. We don't know what state they're at. But
they've spent the most of the last 2 years now. So
yeah, and I'd love to hear
no one
Brett's
comes even close to them. Do you want to go with Brett first, or do you want me to go first? Do you want to leave it with them?
We can start with Brett. He's our guest. Let's have him go.
Brett, go ahead.
All right. Well, I am a West Ham fan, but I do have them at 9. Unfortunately, losing the captain, probably the best holding mid, one of the best holding mids in the Prem. It's a big loss, but I'm expecting some signings coming here hopefully in the next week. We see a striker, I'm hoping, and then Edison. Hopefully that gets finalized, so that way we have our
Maybe a big
holder.
deadline day for West Ham.
Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping. Bowen's pretty dangerous up there, so I've been pleased with him, and I think he'll have a good year. So I don't think they'll drop below 10th, but I don't think they're going to be up there with the big dogs. 8, I have Villa. 7, I have Tottenham, even though I put Son as most improved. And I think Harry Kane is high quality. I'd love to see him go to Madrid. But I think they're going to have a lot of ties. They'll score goals, but I think they'll tie, and their defense isn't strong enough where they're going to be top 5. I don't think. Man U at 6. I think they have a lot of quality, but Ten Hag, I just don't have confidence in him. Getting all of these quality, kind of weird players all having good chemistry together and being able to be in that top 5. 5, I have Newcastle. Miguel Almiron is my boy. I think he's gonna have another good year, and I just like the way that they're moving. That club is going. I know Caleb doesn't like some of the things with Newcastle, but I do think they're moving in good directions. 4, I have Liverpool. I think Liverpool is kind of still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Gakpo and Nunez. I think both those players have great potential, but I could see them struggling offensively some games because they just have guys that are still developing, show signs of being great players, but not quite there yet. And Salah he just can't do it on his own. I think ever since they lost Mane, um, he hasn't been the same player. He's still great and he can create things on his own sometimes, but he's missing a partner, and I don't think they have that right now. 3, I have Chelsea. I think they're gonna have a good year. I think Chelsea with Nkunku, he's gonna be a great signing for them, and I think they're gonna be a lot more consistent when they're playing. I think last year they just really struggled with consistency, and they also have Enzo Fernandez all year, so he's a really solid midfielder, and I see him doing well in the Prem again. 2, I have Arsenal. I think they have a ton of talent, and I really like Mikel Arteta managing them. They do have some added Champions League stuff coming in, so I'm interested to see where they put all their attention. And number 1, of course, manager of the year, player of the year, top scorer, top assister, Man City. They're just I I do not see them even kind of having competition up there this year. I think they're going to put a lot more attention into the Prem and really make a big statement. I think Haaland is hungry, and I think he wants to break his own record. So I'm interested to see if he does. But yeah, those are my predictions.
Very interesting. I'm gonna run through mine really quick. So at 9, I got Brighton. As much as I like De Zerbi as a manager and some of the signings that they made, I think the extra games might be tough for them. And as much as I really want to put them higher because I like how they play, I like their manager. Some of the players like João Pedro and Dahoud and Milner, I'm really interested to see how Milner does this year. I'm a new team. That's gonna be interesting. So I want to keep them at 9 though, as much as I want to move them up. This team at 8, I was very, very, very high on last year, and they ended up disappointing me drastically. A lot of hype around them on this podcast, but Spurs, I'm putting them at 8. I just don't see them doing as well as some think they're going to do. I rode that hype last year and disappointed me. A lot of the same players this year. I don't see it changing that much. 7, I got Villa. I'm really interested to see how they play this year with the full season of Emery. A lot of new players. I mean, if they go toe to toe with pretty much every team, I see them possibly moving up ahead of where I have them because they're a quality team. 6, I have Chelsea. I don't see them having as strong of a year as some of the past years. Last year, obviously, they were in 12th place. I mean, the way they were playing, they might deserve to be a little bit more lower than that. But I see them bouncing back, but not as strongly as they would want with the new manager, Pochettino. He's a decent manager. He's got a lot of big games under his belt and managed some big teams, but I don't know. I just don't see them finding that spark consistently throughout the season. Um, United at 5, kind of a similar thing. You know, they have to all connect. And Rashford kind of carried for a couple of months, or it was about a month or two. If he is not able to pick up the slack again this year, and Hoyland is still adjusting, and Bruno doesn't have that high goal tally like he did his first season coming into the Prem, they could be farther down this list, in my opinion. But I'm going to stick with 5 just based on the defense. Casemiro being in that middle area. I'm interested to see how Anthony and Sancho go out this year because a little bit of down year in terms of their careers, so that could be interesting. 4, I have Newcastle. I mean, they're just a team that has quality all around the field, and not necessarily the best players, but the players in their position. And one that I'd point out, Jolinton, the guy is an engine, and he was a striker like a year ago. Like if you can manage to do things like that, then you're doing the right thing. So I'm gonna say Newcastle 4, even though they are gonna be in more competition, like Champions League, bring in Tonali, and that could be crucial for them. I think he's a great player. Though he didn't seem very happy being on uh, not the best weather, going from Italy to Newcastle. The weather is a bit different, so we'll see how that goes for him. He just didn't seem happy. He wore those glasses, and people were saying he was crying on the airplane because he had to leave his boy club. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Newcastle 4. 3 is Liverpool, who I'm gonna highlight real quick. We have some owners that are make it seem like they are doing a lot to make our team better, but really doing the bare minimum. We lost 8 players this summer, and we replaced them with 2. And teams like Burnley and Fulham and are just outspending us, and we're one of the top revenue clubs in the entire world. It's honestly pathetic from our owners. Probably one of the worst owners in the whole Premier League. There was an article recently I saw talking about another team that FSG owns called the Boston Red Sox. They are being called underdogs now. This historically large, rich history team is now being classed as underdogs. And I fear that's how Liverpool could become. And one thing I would like to say is I think this year might end up being like our 2017-18 season, where we managed to make a run in the cup to the final. But in the Prem, it's just go and score, and then the rest is just vibes. I'm feeling like that could be another type of season for us because we are consistently just stalling on buying more players, and we have the money. We have the money. And this guy, John Henry, has lost his wallet, except for when it's given baseball players contracts and building parks outside Fenway. Then he wants to spend on that. So 3, I have Liverpool. We'll see how that goes.
You think that's gonna get them 3 with how you just bashed
Well,
on them?
I mean, if you look at it, I forgot to bring this up. We have arguably the best attack in all the Prem in terms of the amount of players we have in those front positions. We have Salah. We have Diaz, who's unreal. We're going to see a full season of him. So I'm interested to see. I feel like he will bump that goal tally up. Before he came to Liverpool, he was top scorer of the Portuguese league. So seeing him with the
Yeah,
clean
if he
slate.
stays healthy,
I mean, the first
right.
year we had him, it was only for 6 months, and then he played a couple games. Thomas Partey had a dirty tackle on him. He's out for God knows how long. So, and we have Jota, which is one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, in my opinion. And then Diaz and, or not Diaz, Nunez and Gakpo, both quality players. And I don't remember which one you guys said earlier that Nunez needs a partner in crime, and that is Salah. The amount of times that Nunez scores, it's often because of Salah. We saw that in the Champions League several times. The one that comes out in my head was in the game against Madrid at home, where he had that back heel. It's just unreal. He did the same thing against Fulham, where Salah was passing the ball. If they can manage to get that link up going, Salah will have plenty of assists, and Nunez will have plenty of goals. I just worry about that midfield, and if Van Dijk or Matip gets injured, it could be a rough time. So right now I'm going 3. We'll see. I feel like it'll just be a lot of a vibe season. I'm not sure we'll be able to challenge the top. Arsenal at 2. I mean, I think that's pretty standard because they're a good team, and I don't know if they have the amount of consistently to compete with City, just because City could start out poorly, be in second or third place for most of the year, and then manage to just bump it up like they did last year to get the first again. And then obviously I have City first. I think if you choose someone else, you got to have a serious argument for that, because there's no one really else to pick, because they got the money, they got the manager, they have Haaland, De Bruyne, Guardiola, Ederson, all world class. I mean, you go down their team, even their youngsters are just quality. I mean, we saw Cole Palmer's goal today. Unreal goal, unreal. So I'm gonna stick with City. Liverpool is my highlight team, and yeah. So there's my predictions done.
Yeah, I agree with most of those. My only thing is like what Brett said, and like what we all kind of said. Like Liverpool, once if Kanate or if Kanate and Van Dijk go down, you have no real cover.
It's over. The season's toast.
Yeah.
At
Because
that
we
point.
saw, even watching Joe Gomez in these preseason games, he was getting burned, he was getting killed, he could not defend well.
That's why he's been doing that for a while.
And honestly, Matip's looked a step slower in the preseason too. And
Yeah,
you can tell, even Robertson, it's not as significant as like Gomez or Matip or Kanate or Van Dijk, but he is starting to dip. And I feel
he was a little bit inconsistent, but I would say he's dipping. And a lot of Liverpool fans on Twitter were leaving him out of our projected starting 11. I mean, the guy gets disrespected every 5 minutes nowadays. It's honestly unreal how a couple games here and there, Robertson not playing his best, puts him on the bench for our team. But Tsimikas, yeah, he's had some good games for us, but nowhere near Robertson's level.
I just see if they want to get into the top 5, I feel like Liverpool's just going to have to outscore their opponents more than try to defend them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant by just scoring vibes. You know, it's like when we had the front 4 of Mane, Salah, Firmino, and Coutinho. I mean, those 4. I saw a stat on X, actually, is what's called now. One of those 4 scored every 20 minutes in the Premier League when they all started together. So it's like, if we can manage to somehow get Gakpo, Nunez, Salah, Diaz all on the field at the same time, who knows?
Are you going to play a 2-4-2? Or a 4-2-4?
I mean, it's looking like that. We refuse to sign a DM for some reason. We're holding out like $2 million.
That was going to be my next question for you. I mean, it seems like, you brought up your attack because it's really good and it's one of the best in the Prem, but your defense, especially because you don't have a center defensive mid anymore. You don't have that enforcer in the midfield. And now your whole defense, except for Alexander-Arnold, is aging. You know, like one goes down, it's pretty much over. Like, what's the solution here?
We get new ones. That would be my solution. But, and the thing is, they literally put us up for sale like a couple months ago, and then they're like, oh, it's just for investment opportunity. Then what's the point of telling everyone it's for sale? You're just lying to us. And I haven't heard John Henry talk about Liverpool since he signed us up for the Super League, and then he had to apologize. And ever since then, 90% of Liverpool fans hate the guy. I mean, literally, it's honestly unreal. So, Well, if we don't have anything else to add, we can conclude this podcast. Does anyone want to add anything? Maybe hot take or a surprising prediction that we haven't touched on yet before we close off? What are we saying? What are we saying?
It's always me that has to come out with something wild that are easy to end these lovely podcasts. But
Let's hear it.
I just want to get everybody's take real quick. We all saw the news. It was kind of inevitable to talk about, but we all saw that Mbappe was linked to a 1-year loan with Chelsea and then going to Madrid. I just want to ask, what are all the chances of that actually happening? And do you think it's a good move on his part? For me, I don't. I think he's going to Madrid. I don't think there's a chance that he goes to Chelsea. In my opinion, he's Madrid. He's Madrid bound no matter what. I don't think he comes to the Premier League. But I just want to know if people think that him coming to the Premier League would be good to see for just a year or what.
I mean, yeah, I'd be cool with that. Not in terms of him going to Chelsea, but in terms of going to the Premier League, I would be excited to see that. Obviously, Chelsea willing to spend even on wages that they're not even able to keep, like we saw with João Felix last year. I mean, so I would be interested to see him in the Prem. I don't want him to go to Chelsea though. In my opinion, I feel like a lot of this stuff is just for show, and he'll end up signing a new deal with PSG. Honestly, it's probably going to happen. It happened the last 2 seasons now, so who knows what's going to happen with him. But yeah, I mean, if he went to the Prem, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, honestly, I could see it happening. I know Killian himself said he was open to it, and his agent said so as well. Chelsea, I mean, they do have an exciting project. They have a lot of young players, and Mbappe, he could just be looking for something else and not to stay in Paris anymore. But I don't think he goes to Madrid this summer. I don't think that they want to spend the 200 million or 150 that PSG want for him, especially because I mean we all know that he's going there on a free next summer anyways. So why even drop the 200 now, other than the fact that you lost Karim Benzema in to Saudi Arabia on a free, right? And you don't really have a striker. That's the only reason I could see it. But I don't see Perez giving up 150 million just to get him 1 season sooner. I think he's a bit smarter than that, and I could see him going to Chelsea just because the tensions are going to be so bad in France for him, and he just doesn't want to sit through that situation anymore. I mean, we already saw him turn down Saudi Arabia, but I think that's just because that's just not a great league. But the Premier League, you know, he saw his idol Ronaldo succeed in the Premier League. He might just want to go and see what he can do. He thinks he's the best in the world. He might want to compete with Haaland, who could potentially win a Ballon d'Or this year because he did so well in the Prem. And he's like, well, I know I'm better than Haaland. I want to go see if I can break that scoring record. So that's the only reason I could see him going to Chelsea. But will it happen? Probably not. But could it happen? Definitely.
Do you think in Mbappe and Haaland's mind that they see themselves as rivals, like kind of how the Messi-Ronaldo debate is?
I think so, because I think they both know that they're the future. Like, they both grew up watching the Messi versus Ronaldo and all the debates and everything, and now they're both like, it's our time, it's my time to be the best in the world. We see Mbappe, he was 18 winning the World Cup with France. He's been the top goal scorer for PSG and led France, scored, 2 or 3 goals in the World Cup final, pushing them into, yeah, exactly. So I think Mbappe definitely thinks he's the best in the world. Haaland just broke the all-time Premier League scoring record. He probably thinks he's the best in the world. Like, I think it's just inevitable that they both end up in La Liga. That would be my hope. But
and then I have a question for Brett and Sam. Do you see Vinicius overtaking either one of those two? Or do you actually see him ahead of him right now?
I think Vinicius can be there. We'll see what he does this year. I think there's going to be 3. There's going to be 3 competing for best in the world.
Yeah. In terms of scoring, Vinicius is not the strongest.
There's not going to be a Messi and
in
Ronaldo.
terms of playing, I mean, he is unreal. Sam, what do you think?
I think this next 12 months are going to be crucial to see where Vinny lies within this conversation. Like you mentioned, Vinny is not the strongest in front of goal. His finishing needs work, and he's going to have to learn that he has to be that scoring for Real Madrid without Benzema. And if you look at the other two, they score goals. They score goals for fun. Vinny has had someone providing him the opportunities to score, and without Benzema, I think that's going to be harder because they'll focus on Vinny more than they'll focus on Benzema because you had to focus on both, and you saw the last 2 years that they focused more on Benzema than they did Vinny and Rodrigo and Valverde, whoever else was playing up there. But right now, I wouldn't put Vinny in the conversation as top three with I could put him in the conversation for top 10, top 5, but not top 2.
Okay.
I still think it's Mbappe and Haaland.
Okay. All right. Well, that concludes our Premier League prediction podcast. I thought this went really well with our first guest, Brett. Thank you for coming on. I really, really, really appreciate it. Did a great job. We'll definitely have you back at some point because it kind of balances it out our thoughts. Our the way we want to go about this podcast. So, thank you for coming on. Did you want to say anything before we sign off?
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's a dream of mine to be on this. So,
All right, well, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel and put the notifications on so you can know when we upload. And then if you're on Spotify, you won't be able to see our lovely faces. But thanks for listening to us, and we really appreciate it.